Year 9. Welcome to Options Evening with the Geography Department. Now, studying GCSE Geography is an exciting prospect, especially if you have liked it throughout Key Stage 3. I'm going to be talking to you today about what it's like to study it at GCSE and why I think you should pick it. So the course looks like this. You can pause this video at any point if you just want to have a closer look at this, but it works mainly via two sections. One, heavily physical geography, that's living with the physical environment. The next section, heavily human geography, challenges in the human environment, but I'll speak later about how both of those marry quite well together and link quite a lot. And then we can talk about fieldwork later too. So the GCSE covers a range of topics, both human and physical, like I've just said. So whether you like human geography, like in Year 8, migration, sustainability, and when we looked at Dubai, or Year 9, development in China, some of you have just finished studying, or physical geography. So again, Year 8, global warming, coasts, and recently in Year 9, tectonic hazards, which we're currently studying, and later environments and adaptations. There's something there for everyone. And the great thing about the GCSE is that not only is there a mix of both, but you can actually see how both physical and human geography interact quite well. The course is assessed via 3 exams at the end of Year 11, and there is no coursework. So I'll go through each topic now, and I'll pose what learning will take place via some questions, because ultimately I think questions have a privileged position in our minds, because whenever we are faced with a question, we want an answer to it, and also, generally speaking, we ask a lot of questions, especially young people like yourselves. So have a look at these questions, and each time I'll pick one, and I'll try and link it as well to current events. I often say to students that you can go through the main websites of BBC News, The Guardian, or whatever else you might look at for news, or Twitter, for example, and there's a link to geography absolutely everywhere. So a question might be, why do we never get tropical storms in the UK? Some of you might think you know this answer, but we look at this when we look at the formation of tropical storms and their impacts as well. Now, how is this relevant? It's extremely relevant because tropical storms throughout the world pose serious threats to people and to property. Just have a look at this news story here, coming out of Fiji in the Pacific from February, early February. Tropical cyclone Anna taking lives of people there and damaging property as well. One of the many tropical storms in the last 18 months to have impacted people. And we will also look at how climate change is making tropical storms more frequent and also more intense. Then we move on to the living world. The living world poses questions such as, how well do animals and plants adapt to extreme environments? Do deserts provide more opportunities or challenges for humans? Why is the rainforest important to all mankind? And finally, who is responsible for deforestation and what can be done about it? Essentially, who is responsible for the destruction of our rainforests, be they that in the Amazon or the Borneo rainforest, which we study, which is in Southeast Asia. So who's responsible for deforestation? What can be done about it? That's a very, very big question, and it's a very pertinent one as well. The world's forests play a huge, huge role in our lives, even if you didn't know that already. And the news coming out of 2020 in relation to this was that the Amazon rainforest lost an area the size of Israel in the Middle East in 2020. So the size of that country, and Israel's not a small country, was lost. Whilst this is about forest fires, there's clearly a link there to deforestation as well, and we will touch upon forest fires as well, given that they are not only a contributor to global warming, but also an impact of it too. Then we come closer to home, away from the deserts and the tropical storms and the tropical rainforests. We come to physical landscapes in the UK, where we look at not only coastlines, but also rivers. We ask questions such as, why are our coasts shaped the way they are? Why are coastlines under threat, and what can be done about it? Why do we need to even manage rivers in the UK? What's there to manage? And finally, why does flooding occur, and what can we do about it? For this question, you can see the impacts on both people and property of flooding. And this is highly relevant. Over the last couple of months in this country, there have been severe flood warnings throughout the nation, and they have impacted seriously people and property. Just look at today. Sunday the 7th of February 2021, there are 39 flood warnings throughout England and 158 flood alerts. Whilst there are no severe flood warnings, which pose a danger to life, you can see how much flooding, which you might think is a threat that is not very, very important or not relevant to you, is actually very, very relevant. Then we come to our first human geography topic. It's called Urban Issues and Challenges. And it starts off first by exploring something called urbanization, which is the process by which our cities and towns are growing. And there is a growing proportion of people living in cities, urban areas, as opposed to rural areas, like countryside and villages. So we ask questions like, how can people in cities become more sustainable? Are cities like London and Lagos hubs of opportunity? Lagos in Nigeria and London, obviously our very own city, are two case studies that we look at. How is the life of the urban poor in Lagos being made better? And what challenges does London, our very own capital city, face as it grows? Challenges ranging from crime, deprivation, to environmental challenges as well. We focus on how people can become more sustainable through many, many means. And this again is very, very, very relevant to our world today. If we just look at this article from The Guardian in early Feb, it's just 2 days ago, there's an article here about the Swedish city of Malmö and how we can learn some lessons in relation to something that we will learn about called urban greening and rewilding. And this is quite exciting as a topic, mainly because it's the first time that we really study our very own city in depth, but also looking at Lagos in Nigeria is no less exciting. It's a fascinating city to learn about, both in its opportunities and its many, many challenges. Our second human geography topic is called the changing economic world, where again we stick with Nigeria, but this time the country as a whole, but also we look back later on at the UK as a whole, as opposed to just London. So we think about questions such as, why are some places more developed or richer than others? What is the north-south divide in the UK, and what are we doing about it? How is the UK's economy changing, and why? And also, what are the impacts of economic growth in Nigeria? Is it all good? Are the people of Nigeria just benefiting? Or as we can see in this picture in the background, if you've already noticed it, or this picture, are some of the reasons why Nigeria is growing, namely it's the fact that it is very, very oil rich, leading for some people's quality of life to worsen, whilst some people's quality of life within Nigeria improves. This is a developing story. So again, earlier this week, Shell said that they might have to reevaluate their oil operations onshore in Nigeria. Shell is a TNC, a transnational corporation, who we look at very closely in what they do for Nigeria, both positively, but actually, if you look at it socially, economically, and environmentally, also quite negatively in the country too. So really, really exciting topic, and that's before we even cover bigger questions like the one here on the top right. Why are some places more developed than others? Our final human geography topic is the challenge of resource management. Now, in a growing world, and in a world that is becoming increasingly more resource intensive, meaning that we are using more and more resources as the planet grows and we all become gradually richer, obviously faster in some places than in others, what will happen to our resources like water, energy, oil, food, etc.? Will we run out of them? Will we be faced with some difficult questions and problems, or will we deal with it? So we ask ourselves questions like, how can we make water supplies and availability more sustainable? How is the UK sourcing its energy under the threat of climate change? Are we switching away from non-renewables? Do inequalities exist in the supply and consumption of resources? So does everyone around the world enjoy access to oil, food, energy, etc. Equally? And finally, why do some places lack sufficient water? And we look at questions, like I said, like this, in terms of water insecurity and lack of access to clean water. We think, why does that happen? And also, what impacts could that have on people? This is very relevant. This is a report coming out of Michigan State University, which says that the number of people suffering from extreme droughts will double in the coming years. So how will you be assessed? Via 3 exams, like I've said before, 1 testing all physical geography, 1 testing all human geography, and finally 1 testing fieldwork skills. So on that, we do 2 field trips across the GCSE. The first one, which we try and do in the summer of year 10, is the physical geography trip, where we study coastal erosion at Swanage Beach in Dorset, which you can see in the map there on the top right. And our second, which we do around Easter in year 11, where we go out to Stratford and study regeneration around that area. If you are sort of confused about that, just ask your parents about what Stratford was like when they were growing up and when they were younger, perhaps in school, and they will tell you that Stratford back then was a much, much, much different Stratford to what it's like today. So I'll leave it there, and I'll leave this here by slowly flicking between these testimonials of some of our former students who are now in year 12 in our 6th form: Mini, Abdi, Dunia, and Santiago. So I'll leave that there. You're able to go back in the video and pause as many times as you like. Hopefully that's given you a good overview of GCSE geography. I look forward to having more conversations with you about it. Feel free to email me or your geography teacher at any point about it. And I look forward to you picking it and us embarking on our GCSE journey together.